Why do Latter-day Saints have temples, but not the rest of Christianity? My name is Jeff. I am a Christian pastor exploring everything I can about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was recently in Nauvoo, Illinois. This is a place where most of the saints lived in the mid-1800s, just prior to Brigham Young taking all of the saints out to Utah. I was contemplating this question as I was exploring the historic areas and seeing the temple in Nauvoo. In the Old Testament, there were two main reasons why God commanded his people to build the temple. One, so they would have a place where they could fulfill specific requirements of the law that were important to salvation, and two, so there would be a place where God's presence could dwell in the inner sanctum with the Ark of the Covenant. Joseph Smith taught that this temple needed to be restored so that the saints would have a place to carry out specific covenants that are important to salvation. The rest of Christianity, on the other hand, believes that when Jesus came and died on the cross, he fulfilled the requirements of the law, and he brought God's presence near because he is Emmanuel God. And that is why Latter-day Saints have temples, but not the rest of Christianity.
He's actually very right here. He gives all correct information. However, I would point out simply that in the Bible, the limiting of God's presence to the temple idea was actually not in the Bible itself, but was a later development of Jewish thought. The temple was where certain ordinances were done, and it was the house of the Lord. But the people could still have the presence of God with them through the Spirit, just as Christians do today. Now, before the time of Moses, people were building altars. They had, their kind of temples. And these continued even during the time of Moses, or in the later years. You remember Elijah on the test of Mount Carmel. It says he repaired the altar of the Lord, meaning there was a true altar to God on Mount Carmel. The temple wasn't there, but there was an official recognized altar where ordinances could be performed. So the temple was not the only place in the Old Testament, even during the time of Moses, that these ordinances could be performed and where the presence of the Lord could be found. It was just the central place. The temple in Jerusalem was the central place of the worship. Now later on, when pagan worship comes in, Hezekiah destroys all the high places, all these other altars, and brings all worship to the temple so that they can maintain the true religion and make sure that the pagan influence doesn't creep in again. But for a long time, the temple was not the only place. And before the time of Moses, they had a general Melchizedek priesthood, as the church does today, and as the church under Christ received. During the time of Moses, the Melchizedek priesthood was withdrawn from the general membership and was given to only select few as needed so that these ordinances could still be performed, but it was not something that everybody was eligible for. So the restrictions on the temple during the time of Moses don't really tell us anything about what happened before the time of Moses. And before the time of Moses, we really just have the book of Genesis, which is very sparse on details. Christ, he didn't come and remove the temple, he fulfilled it. And he did, but the laws that were added at the time of Moses were taken away because they were a temporary law that was given to guide people to Christ. So those laws were removed. But the main law, the covenants that had been in place from the time of Adam were not taken away. They were not undone. They were simply fulfilled in Christ. But given what most Christians believe, I understand why they don't have temples. I just think that they are in error, that they do not fully understand what the Bible teaches.